Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Run. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Today we are honored to have Dr. Jason Luong running for the 185th District Court. Judge Luong, there has been some issues that came up recently in your election that I think, as far as you're concerned, is sort of taken out of context. And what I wanted to do as part of Politics Done Right, all we do here is determine what truth is, put out the truth of information. And we wanted to tackle that issue before we got into any other topics.
Let me first say thank you for having me on your show. And I'm glad that your listeners and viewers will have a chance to learn a little bit about me and my court and my race. First, let me say the Texas Code of Judicial Conduct limits what I can say about this issue because it was a matter of my court. But as your viewers will probably have heard, there were some terrible things that were said about me regarding my court or about cases that were pending my court. Let me tell you that I would love to be able to address those specifically, but I can't because of the Code of Judicial Conduct prevents me from speaking about them. But I'll tell you that since that story came out, everyone who's practiced in my court, or I say virtually everyone, has come in support because they know what kind of judge I really am. And I think the real telltale sign of the merit of those allegations or the lack thereof really came when a few days after the story broke, Commissioner Rodney Ellis reached out to me personally and said, you know what, I want to make sure everyone knows I know the truth about what's going on. I want everyone to know that I'm endorsing you and supporting you. And since that time period, everyone else who's practiced in my court, who's ever practiced criminal defense, even prosecutors too, who have practiced in the courthouse, have come in and told me that they support me during this difficult time. And so that's all I can say about that issue. And I'll talk to you about it procedurally because this is a little bit technical, is that generally speaking, a motion to recuse, which is what happened in this case, is a motion that's filed by a litigant, one party, and their claim the judge may have a certain type of bias or viewpoint that they feel should have that person removed from a case. In that procedure, the judge has no opportunity to respond to any of the allegations. And so that's the real, there's nothing I could do about it.
I am going to get back to this a little bit, but just why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I think you are you are the only not South Asian but Asian person on the bench. Is that correct?
That's right. I'll say, I guess East Asian is a way we'd kind of define it as being between the South Asians or like Indian, Pakistani, or Middle Eastern, and then East Asian like Vietnamese and Chinese. But I am the first and only Asian American elected as a criminal district court judge. There is a civil court judge who's Vietnamese named Christine Weems, and there was one prior misdemeanor court judge who is Chinese. But I am actually the first, also along with Christine Weems, who's Vietnamese. She and I are the first ever judges elected, Vietnamese American elected judges in Harris County, and I actually believe the state of Texas. She and I are actually the highest ranking Asian American elected officials in Harris County, which is incredible to believe. And we're proud, that one of the highlights of my life was that my father, my whole family were first generation refugees from Vietnam. We came right after the fall of Saigon, that he got to see me sworn in as a judge. And so that was very moving. My father passed away last year, but I'm glad he got to see me become a judge because, he lived the American dream. He came to the country where he was a lawyer in Vietnam, but he never practiced because of the war. But he had a chance to see his son practice law and also become a judge. So that's part of what makes I enjoy being a judge so much. But also, Vietnamese is actually the third most spoken language in Houston. Outside of English and Spanish, Vietnamese is next. And for us to finally have a Vietnamese American judge, I think is pretty special for a time for our city. So I'm glad that I can be that judge.
One of the reasons I always start with knowing, especially during an election period, with there having been a controversy that surrounds a particular election, and then I come to this point, is for one specific reasons. I am always cognizant of the fact that in politics, games are played. And I am, as an objective observer, one never knows exactly on when the facts are unbeknownst where it goes. But we want to make sure that Harris County has the best information that they have to make the choices that they're tasked to make. So I'm going to try to ask you something without getting into your whatever
Sure.
judicial roles or rules that you have to follow. And so I'm going to ask you questions in this way. I am do you do believe that children who are let's say I don't want to use the word abuse too firmly here, but abused by adults, that adults bear a strong or should bear a strong price if they do anything untoward to kids?
Well, yes. I mean, I think everyone believes that. And that's why I actually have a 14-year-old daughter and I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. And so I fully believe that the law should be enforced as appropriate in cases. I don't think there should be any exception in this type of case as well. So I 100% agree with that. In most cases, as was this case, or the case in my court, the judge, unless they come to me for punishment, everything is handled by the jury.
Mhm.
And so, and in both cases, in one case, and in most situations, it's very rare, but most of the times the parties go to the jury for punishment.
Mhm.
So that's why. But yes, even as a personal matter, of course, I believe that in appropriate circumstances, people should be punished as appropriate by the law.
And what determines, in your opinion, as a judge, sir, length of time that one should serve for particular offenses?
Well, again, the code of conduct would prevent me from going into any specific
No, I'm not
details.
talking about any specific.
I know.
I'm not talking about a specific instance at all, because you already said that we can't discuss any specific tale. But I think our audience would
Mhm.
like to know that when you're serving on the bench, what would you do as far as what level of punishment uh, uh, is attributed to what type of offense against a kid?
Well, yes, and I want to make it clear, the code doesn't prevent you from talking about any particular case, but a judge can't say comments that makes it sound as if he has a certain viewpoint about any future case or set of facts.
Exactly.
But
I understand.
in every situation, the judge considers all the facts, and it's the party's duties to present those facts to the judge. There may be evidence regarding how it affected the child or the family, or in some situations, it may be a situation where there's mitigating evidence of the defendant being a victim of abuse themselves growing up, or they're in foster care. So there are a lot of things that go into it. But as a judge, we consider everything. If they go to me for punishment, the parties have the opportunity to present all the evidence to the judge to consider, whether good, bad, or just neutral. And so I never prevent any party from presenting evidence that they think is going to be even slightly relevant, because as a judge, I want to consider everything. And it's the hardest part about any judge has to do is deciding what the appropriate punishment is. In a jury trial, you have 12 people and they decide together what the punishment should be. So you get a chance to talk to other people and you get to weigh your ideas. As a judge, oftentimes you have to decide on your own. And that's why I'm fortunate to have 21 years of experience, because it really does open your eyes about what may be appropriate. So that's why I consider all these factors. I can't say that one is more important, because every case is different, but we consider everything.
Now, as far as the audience is concerned, after what they've heard, let's say information they've heard, what would you tell them? This is a reason why you must vote me back in.
Sure.
As opposed to the candidate that's running against me.
Sure. First of all, I'm the candidate with the most experience in this race. I have over 21 years of legal experience. That's almost 3 times as much as my opponent. I'm the only candidate that has experience as both a prosecutor. I was a prosecutor for many years. That's why when people say that I may be biased one way, I think it's they don't know the real facts, because I prosecuted cases for I was a felony level prosecutor for the DA's office, and then I became a defense lawyer and a judge. So I've done every side of the law. So I've had experiences that as a defense attorney and as a judge. My opponent has only been, her only experience has only been as a prosecutor. She's never represented someone or defended them against allegations or so. It's very one-sided. But also, I think that every organization that has looked at this race, including or even after those allegations came out, including the Houston Chronicle, they reviewed everyone that they endorsed. They endorsed me, and they talked to me at length about the issue. I'm sure they talked to her about this issue, and they felt very comfortable with endorsing me because they know the reality of the situation. You know, a lot of it is politics. I mean, you see in the paper today about politics coming from the DA's office and what they're doing. So this is just another part and parcel of that. And they have a right to make whatever allegations they do. And I understand that part. But I have received the endorsement over 24 elected officials, newspapers, every bar association that has evaluated this race has endorsed me over my opponent. Including the Association of Women Attorneys endorsed me over my opponent, and my opponent's a female. That says a lot. Every organization, the Democratic Party, the most active and most important ones, Houston Black American Democrats, Tejano Democrats came out and endorsed me, I think almost just 2 nights ago. The caucus, which represents, the LGBT community, the union. So every organization and every broad group of organization has evaluated this race and decided that I'm the best candidate. And I don't disparage my opponent. She's a good prosecutor. She's young. She's only been practicing law maybe almost 8 years. But I'm the better candidate. If she runs in the future, I wish her well. But I'm the far better candidate in this race. And I think that's reflected in all the people who've endorsed me, including both Democratic Harris County commissioners, Commissioner Garcia and Commissioner Rodney Ellis have both endorsed me in this race, as well as State Representative Jean Wu, Penny Morales-Shaw, Hubert Vaugh, Ron Reynolds. There's a lot of folks who know me and the work we've done for the past, 14 years for the Democratic Party.
Well, let me tell you, Judge Luong, I personally don't like when gotchas come out in politics. I like fair-handed politics, and I don't know, but I wanted to make sure that you got more than a soundbite that you got on Click 2 or all the other stations. I thought the only fair thing to do after allegations are made is for the person who it's made against to have their fair share and whatever time they need to come, to say what they have to say. I think that is important. We have nasty politics right now, and I think we need to give people the opportunity to come and express themselves. So would you like to say any closing words?
Sure. I'll say this, first of all, the service you provide, Mr. Willies, is incredible. Good politics and good democracy means people need to be informed, and your program is important in informing people. Otherwise, we just have people making decisions based on, whose name is first on the ballot or which name sounds better or more familiar or whatever it is. It's identity politics sometimes. So you educating people is important. Voting in this race or this runoff has been pretty low, especially by the Democrats, which is scary because I think the totals on Monday, they had like 8,000 Republicans voting, 3,500 Democrats. Mm-hmm. We're going to get shellacked in November. So I hope that everyone who's listening, one, I hope they go out and vote. And secondly, that they vote for me. If you're really concerned about the Democratic Party and progressive ideals, the Asian American community is a big part of the Democratic Party. In 2018, the Republicans primaried the only Asian American judge, Teresa Chang. And the stuff they accused her of was pretty ugly. I think one time the opponent said that you couldn't understand her on the bench because she had an accent. It was ugly stuff. And I feel like the same thing happens in my kind of race too, where my opponent's saying some things that are that are reckless or misleading. But the Asian American population is growing, one of the fastest growing segments of the Democratic Party. And we need to have candidates that reflect the diversity of our community and qualified candidates. I went to Rice University. I went to University of Texas School of Law. I clerked for a federal judge. I worked as a prosecutor and then as a defense lawyer. And not only just a defense lawyer, I was on the board of the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. So my qualifications are outstanding, and I hate that we attack incumbent judges when for a lot of people are for opportunists because they just want to get a position because they know that Democrats were winning and the blue wave. But I forgot, this is the other part I wanted to say. The other important role I have is not simply being a judge, but I'm also the presiding judge of Veterans Treatment Court, which is a special court that helps veterans who have PTSD, service-connected PTSD, brain injury, or addiction issues that came from their service in the military. And then they have a criminal case like aggravated assault, driving while intoxicated, felony offense. But rather than sending them to prison or just giving them a regular probation, we connect them with VA services. They meet with our court every 2 weeks. We have a strong treatment plan for every single one: mental health services, addiction treatment, housing sometimes. But we really have helped a lot of veterans, and really, literally, not myself, because it's a team effort. We have 12 to 15 people working on every single veteran in our program. We've saved people's lives who would otherwise be lost to suicide or addiction. And so that's, my wife's a Marine Corps veteran. So we've always helped the veteran community, and I'm glad to do it. And that's another important reason why I hope people will vote for me, is because I can continue our work helping our veterans. So there's 2 more days of early voting left. There's no early voting on the weekend. It's Thursday and Friday. And I know people always say, oh, they just I'll go next day. I'll go the next day. See, and then they think they're going to go on Saturday and it's closed. And then Tuesday they get discouraged because the line is long. And Republicans have made it as hard as possible for people to vote. So make sure you use that right to vote. Tell your family members to vote. And I hope you vote for me, Judge Jason Luong. That's spelled Luong. I'm your only Asian American criminal court judge in Harris County. And I hope to continue representing the great people of this county.
Judge Jason Luong, 185th Criminal Justice Court, thank you so kindly for having been
Thank you.
Politics Done Right.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.